Welcome back to Lincoln Penny 1991 D $1.3 million dollar. Imagine finding a 1-cent coin in your pocket that looks completely ordinary, but could be worth far more than 1 cent to the right collector. What if that small copper-colored coin has been sitting unnoticed in an old jar, a drawer, a wallet, or even a box of loose change for decades? Today on Hardest Penny, we are taking a close look at one specific coin that millions of people have probably handled without realizing what they were holding, the 1991 D Lincoln Penny. This coin may not look rare at first glance, but collectors know that the real story of a coin is often hidden in its condition, its mint mark, its errors, and the tiny details that most people never bother to inspect. So before you spend that old penny, stay with me, because by the end of this video, you will know exactly what to look for on a 1991 D Lincoln cent, and why some examples could become much more interesting to collectors than their 1-cent face value suggests. 1991 D Lincoln Penny. The 1991 D Lincoln Penny was struck at the Denver Mint, which is identified by the small d mint mark underneath the date on the obverse side of the coin. At first glance, this is simply another Lincoln cent from the early 1990s. It features the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln facing right, with the word Liberty beside him and the date 1991 below. The tiny d beneath the date tells us that this particular coin was produced at the Denver Mint rather than the Philadelphia Mint. Millions of Lincoln cents were produced during this era, which means the normal 1991 D penny is not automatically a rare coin. This is one of the most important things to understand when searching through your change. A coin being old does not necessarily make it valuable, and a coin having a mint mark does not automatically mean it is rare. The real question is, what makes your particular example different? That is where condition becomes extremely important. A typical circulated 1991 D penny may show scratches, discoloration, flattened details, and wear on Lincoln's hair, cheek, jaw, and the lettering. These ordinary circulated examples generally have limited collector value. But if you find a 1991 D penny that has been carefully preserved with bright original surfaces, sharp details, and very little contact with other coins, things become more interesting. Collectors grade coins according to their condition, and high-grade examples can attract significantly more attention than worn pieces. A coin that has spent years moving through vending machines, cash registers, pockets, and jars will usually develop marks and wear. A coin that somehow escapes circulation can look dramatically different. When examining a 1991 D penny, start with Lincoln's portrait. Look carefully at his cheek, jawline, hair, and the area around his ear. These are places where wear and contact marks can become obvious. Next, examine the fields, which are the open areas around Lincoln. Are they covered with scratches and tiny dents, or do they still appear clean and attractive? Then inspect the lettering and date. Sharp lettering and strong details can help indicate that the coin has seen little circulation. But condition is only part of the story. The next thing you should investigate is the possibility of a mint error or unusual variety. This is where coin hunting becomes exciting. A normal 1991 D penny may be common, but a genuine mint error can be much more interesting. Errors can happen during the manufacturing process, and depending on the type and severity, they may attract collectors. Look closely at the date and mint mark. Check the letters in Liberty and I in God We Trust. Flip the coin over and carefully inspect the reverse, especially the words United States of America, 1 cent, and E pluribus unum. Also examine the Lincoln Memorial and the surrounding fields. You're looking for anything that appears genuinely unusual rather than simply damaged. That distinction is extremely important. Many pennies found in circulation have scratches, dents, bends, stains, or chemical discoloration. These are usually post-mint damage, meaning the coin was damaged after it left the mint. A genuine mint error is different because the unusual feature occurred during production. For example, if you notice a strange raised area, missing design element, unusual doubling, or a significant structural problem, do not immediately assume you have discovered a valuable error. Take a closer look and compare it with normal examples. Sometimes what appears to be doubling is simply machine doubling, and sometimes what looks like a missing design is actually the result of wear. This is why serious collectors examine coins under good lighting and, when necessary, use magnification. However, be careful with cleaning. If you discover a 1991 penny that looks old and dirty, your first instinct might be to polish it until it shines. Do not do that if you are hoping to preserve collector value. Cleaning can leave scratches and unnatural surfaces that collectors often consider undesirable. A coin with original surfaces is usually far more interesting than one that has been aggressively polished. Now let's talk about the big question. Is every 1991 penny worth dollars? The answer is no. Most ordinary circulated examples are still worth close to their face value, and even uncirculated examples are not automatically worth huge amounts. The value depends on condition, certification, rarity, and whether the coin possesses an important error or variety. This is where online videos can sometimes create confusion. You may see a headline claiming that a 1991 penny is worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. But you should never assume that every coin with the same date and mint mark has that value. High prices usually belong to exceptional examples, rare errors, top condition grades, or coins with characteristics that make them particularly desirable. That is why your job as a coin hunter is not simply to look at the date. You need to inspect the entire coin. Take your 1991 penny and turn it slowly under a bright light. Look at Lincoln's face. Check the date. Inspect the mint mark. Move to the reverse. Examine the memorial building and lettering. Look around the edges for unusual strikes or damage. Compare both sides of the coin with a normal 1991 example. And remember, the edge can tell you something too. If the coin has an unusual shape, a strange edge, or evidence that something happened during striking, it deserves additional investigation. If you believe your coin has a genuine mint error or is an exceptionally high-grade example, consider getting an expert opinion before spending money on expensive grading services. Professional authentication and grading can be useful when a coin appears genuinely valuable, especially if you think it could be worth significantly more than the cost of certification. The exciting part about collecting is that you don't always need to begin with expensive coins. Sometimes the best discoveries happen when someone simply decides to look more carefully at ordinary pocket change. And that is exactly why a 1991 Lincoln penny is worth talking about. It teaches us an important lesson. Rarity is not always obvious. A coin can look completely normal until you examine the tiny details. A small mint mark, an unusual strike, exceptional preservation, or a legitimate error can completely change the story. So the next time you receive a handful of pennies, don't automatically throw them into a jar and forget about them. Take a few seconds to check the dates. Look for mint marks. Examine unusual details. And most importantly, don't clean coins just because they look dirty. So before you spend that 1991 Lincoln penny, stop for a moment. Look at the date. Look at the D. Look at the condition. Turn it over. Check the details. And never judge a coin by its face value alone. Because in the world of coin collecting, 1 cent can sometimes start a much bigger story. This is Hardest Penny, and if you enjoy discovering the hidden details, surprising varieties, and fascinating history behind everyday coins, make sure you keep checking your change. Your next interesting penny could already be sitting right in front of you.